Good evening, and welcome to this special event that the U.S. Consulate in Mumbai has organized, especially for prospective students interested in studying in the United States and their parents. My name is Sita Reiter, and I currently serve as the Assistant Cultural Affairs Officer at the U.S. Consulate. One of our top priorities in strengthening the U.S.-India relationship is to promote greater educational ties between our countries and to encourage student mobility. With a view to that, we bring you this Facebook Live event. Studying in the United States helps students gain a world-class education, create lifelong relationships, and build strong professional networks. And because we understand the effort and value a student and their family plays in the decision and application processes, in today's session, we will help simplify the university application process and demystify the student visa system for you. Moreover, the consulate's role in facilitating your academic journey to the United States does not end with this session. Over the coming months, we have planned a monthly series of events on the various aspects of study abroad, from shortlisting and applying to U.S. universities to student visa orientations and preparing to depart to the United States. Details for the monthly session are available at the Consulate website and also on the comment pinned to this Facebook Live event. In today's session, Dr. Deborah Rosario, an Education USA advisor, will simplify the process of applying to U.S. universities. And Mr. Joseph Burton, our Deputy Non-Immigrant Visa Chief, will elaborate on the student visa procedure. Deborah Rosario has a doctorate in English literature from Oxford University. During and following her doctorate at Oxford, Deborah tutored and lectured in English literature at Oxford and subsequently at Mumbai University. Following her doctorate, she worked as the national coordinator for the UK at the Veritas Forum, where she organized and coordinated academic events at university campuses and as associate academic director at the Samvada Center for Research Resources, Mumbai, where she organized and supported research projects and academic training for prospective study abroad students. She has been an Education USA advisor for the past 5 years. Joseph Burton is the Deputy Chief of the Non-Immigrant Visa Unit at the U.S. Consulate. He comes to Mumbai from Washington, D.C., where he served in the Afghanistan Special Immigrant Visa Unit. He has previously worked in Ankara, Turkey, where he was the designated Farsi-speaking consular officer. He is returning to India after his first tour in Kolkata, where he served as a non-immigrant visa and ACS officer. Originally from Portland, Oregon, Joseph studied Near Eastern languages and civilization at the University of Washington, Seattle. And moderating the Q&A round will be Dr. Aditi Lele, an Education USA advisor for the last 2 years. Aditi has a doctorate in biology from the University of Arkansas and hails from a small village in Western India. Curiosity to understand and learn about nature led her to pursue a master's in biodiversity in India, followed by a doctorate in the subject in the United States. As a graduate student, she was actively involved with the international student community in various capacities and as a cultural ambassador for the University of Arkansas. Education USA is a nonprofit U.S. government-supported network promoting U.S. higher education to students around the world by offering accurate, comprehensive, and current information about opportunities to study at accredited post-secondary institutions in the United States. In addition to information sessions like these, Education USA advises students and their families, usually at Education USA centers, but during the pandemic, online as well. I encourage you to reach out to Education USA as you navigate your potential path to study in the United States. Thank you. And I now invite Deborah to begin the presentation.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to this session on studying in the United States. As was said, my name is Deborah Rosario, and I am going to talk you through the first part of this presentation on the application process to US universities. Before I begin with the application process, I'd like to give you some background on the statistics of students studying in the United States. Currently, there are over 10,75,000 plus international students studying in the United States. Next slide, please. And of these, there are over 1,93,000 Indian students studying in the United States. Indians make up the second largest foreign nationality studying in the United States. And this is good news for us because it means that US universities know they're used to receiving Indian applicants. They know the schools and colleges we come from when they read our applications. They're also used to supporting Indian students in making the academic and cultural transitions to US student life. And it also means that Indians can go to the US and explore another culture without losing their connection to home. Many universities have Indian student associations. There'll always be someone to celebrate Diwali and Holi with. And so the connection to home is never lost. Next slide. Before I begin the application process, I'd like to also talk to you about the question, why study in the United States in the first place? Why does the US make a great study destination? And I'm going to offer you 4 reasons why you should study in the United States. The first is flexibility. Especially at the undergraduate level, there is a great degree of flexibility in terms of choosing your major. You can change your major, after you've selected one. If you find that the one that you've selected is not the one that you're really interested in, the one that you want to continue studying. You can also double major if you find you have 2 areas that you're interested in. You can major and minor. A minor is a subject of secondary interest. So for instance, you can major in sociology and minor in music if that is something you want to do to just follow a passion. Or you can major in sociology and minor in statistics if you want to complement your sociology studies, your major. You can also go in undecided. If you're not sure what you want to study, you can go in undecided and choose your major later on in the 4 years that you'll be studying as an undergraduate student. And finally, you can also create your own major in some universities. This is a really interesting option. It's not for those who don't know what they want to study. It's for those who have a very specific interest, which is not offered by the list of majors of a particular university. So some universities will allow you to create your own major, drawing on the courses that are offered by other majors. There are also cross-disciplinary programs at all levels, and there are dual degrees at the master's level. So for instance, you could be doing an MS in computer science and do an MBA at the same time. Another example is a JD, which is a law degree, and a degree in forensic science, or a degree in journalism and a degree in public policy. These are examples of dual degrees offered by US universities. And the point of this is that both at the undergraduate level and at the graduate level, there is a great degree of flexibility to customize the program that you're studying to suit your particular career aspirations. A second reason why you should study in the United States is choice. There are more than 4,000 institutions in the United States, and there is a great variety in the types of institutions, academic and social environments. There's also a great variety of degree programs. So for instance, if you are someone who has a broad interest in computer science, you could be studying an MS in computer science. But if you have a very specific interest in artificial intelligence and machine learning, there are master's programs in those subjects specifically. Similarly, you could be studying a broad MBA degree, or you could be studying music management or sports management, very specific degrees. So each cluster of subject areas has a wide range of degree programs available for you to study. and you can find something to suit your particular career needs and aspirations. There's also a wide range of entry requirements in the United States. Can we go back to the previous slide? There's a wide range of entry requirements. So for instance, there are MBAs which require 5 years of work experience, but there are also MBAs that require 0 to 2 years of work experience. You can find programs that accept the kinds of GRE scores you have or the kinds of GPA scores you have. US universities publish this information on their websites, and you can look up their websites to know more about their entry requirements. So there's a wide range, and you can find something to suit your background and your needs and interests. Next slide. The third reason why you should study in the US is quality. There are world-class research facilities. There are very highly specialized labs. There are very high-tech and cutting-edge labs in the US. Also, excellent libraries with wide access to a wide range of books and journal articles. There's worldwide recognition. That means that US universities offer degrees that are globally recognized. And if you have a US degree, then the world is your oyster. US universities also achieve accreditation to ensure standards. And this accreditation is renewed periodically, which means that these standards have to be maintained over periods of time. There's also global and diverse faculty. US universities draw the best of expertise from around the world to their campuses. And so you get the best of expertise teaching you at your university. It also means that as an international student, you will be meeting international faculty as well. And that can broaden your perspectives and make you feel more comfortable too. Finally, the last reason to study in the United States is value. There are a range of tuition fees and living costs, and you can find something to suit your particular budget. There is also financial aid and scholarships offered by US universities that will bring down the cost. And in addition, the US universities offer real-world skills training and the opportunity to do internships. This means that you come out from a US degree with not just academic experience, but also with real-world skills that will help you enter the job market. And in addition, US degrees offer you soft skills training, like intercultural communication, teamwork, and interpersonal skills. Next slide. So those were 4 reasons why the US makes a great study destination. And I'm now going to talk you through the application process. The application process may seem long and complicated, but if you break it down systematically into 4 steps that we're going to suggest today, it's going to be easier than you think. Next slide. So the first step is choosing the right university. There are more than 4,000 academic institutions in the United States. How do you know which is the right one for you? Next slide. We're going to suggest that you select universities based on these 5 criteria: education, facilities, location, diversity, and fees. And I'm going to talk you through each of them one by one. Next slide. The first criterion that we're going to discuss is education. And the first point under education is the academic programs offered by the university. This is the most important thing when you look out for US universities to shortlist to apply to. Academic programs, you should select academic programs that match your particular career aspirations. Sometimes students want to go to a university because of its name, and they might select academic programs that are different to the ones they really desire, just to enter a particular university because of its name. And that's the wrong approach to use. There are plenty of good universities in the US. And the important thing is not to match yourself to the university, but to match the university to yourself. You need to find the universities that offer the right programs for your particular career needs and aspirations. That means looking up the curricula of the universities, looking up their coursework, their core courses and electives, their specializations and concentrations. Especially if you're a graduate student, it means looking up faculty profiles and trying to understand which faculty have published recently, which ones are involved in research projects or any other kind of active projects. You can look at departmental activity. You can find out which professional institution has a chapter at that university, what hackathons or other student competitions there might be, what research projects might be going on, and so forth. And this will show you how active and strong a particular department is in the area in which you want to specialize, in the area you want to study in. Should you look at school rank? Something to be aware of is that there are no official rankings for US universities. There are only multiple ranking lists published by private publication houses, and each of these has a different set of criteria. The important thing to note is that these criteria may not correspond to your needs and interests. They might be quite irrelevant to your needs and interests. So it is important to develop your own list based on your own criteria that are important to you, such as the criteria we are outlining here. And accordingly make a list of universities that suit your particular needs and interests. If you do look at school rankings as a starting point, then do be sure to look up their criteria as well so that you understand on what basis the list of universities has been drawn up. You can also look at admissions rates of US universities. This will help you get an idea of how competitive US universities are and whether they should fall into your dream university list, your matching or moderate university list, or your safe university list. So that's something you can look at as well. And you can look at the graduation rate to determine how successful students are when they enter that particular university. Next slide. Another criterion that you can look at are facilities. Research is something that's important. You can look at what research facilities are available, what labs or libraries are available at the university. You can look at recreational facilities. Universities have recreation centers and you can explore what facilities they have on offer. You can also explore what is around the university and what there might be to do in your spare time. Transportation is something that is also of practical necessity for most students. You can explore whether you need a car to drive to the university, whether there's public transport available, whether the university is walking distance from the living areas around the university. So these are some of the things you can consider. You can also consider your dining options. Now, this may not be important to some students, but it may be very important to others, especially if you have dietary restrictions, like if you have a vegetarian diet or if you have some other kind of dietary restriction. You may want to explore the university in advance to know what kind of dining options are available to you. Next slide. Another criterion that you will want to consider is the location. If you have relatives in the US, you may want to select a US university that is close to your relatives. Staying with your relatives could make your living expenses cheaper and more affordable. But also sometimes living near a relative is just good for moral support. So you may want to find a university close to your relatives. You can also consider whether the university has a rural or urban location and how you would feel about that, whether you would feel comfortable in that kind of location. So for instance, someone from Mumbai city might find that a rural location has a refreshing contrast of peace and quiet. But on the other hand, it might also be too quiet for someone and they may prefer an urban location which is busy and light. There's no right or wrong about this, good or bad. It's just about what you feel comfortable with and how you can flourish in that location during the time you're studying in the US. Something else that is related to location is weather. Now, the US is a big country and experiences different kinds of weather. So you may want to explore the weather in the near the universities that you are considering applying to. Some states in the US, particularly in the north, experience very cold weather and may experience several months of snow. If that's the case, would you be comfortable with that kind of cold weather? Would you be willing to make the adjustments required to live in such weather? That's something for you to consider. And if not, then you would want to apply to places which have warmer weather. Next slide. Another criterion to consider is diversity. Some students are very interested in going to US universities that have a good international student population. If that's you, then you should explore the statistics of the international student population at your universities that you're considering applying to. And again, there's no right or wrong, good or bad about this. Some students want, as Indians, to have a university which has a lot of Indian students. Some prefer an all-American experience. Again, it's just about what you're comfortable with. Explore the diversity statistics of the US universities that you're applying to find out more. You may also want to consider the fact that some universities have a religious affiliation. Now, this is not something to worry about. Most universities with a religious affiliation are open to receiving students from all backgrounds and religions. But it does mean that it could change the character of your experience at that university. So that's something to consider if you find that your university has a religious affiliation. Next slide. Finally, the last criterion, but a very important criterion that we need to consider, are the fees that you are going to be paying. It's very important to explore what the annual expenses of a particular university will be. As you can see, this slide contains a breakdown of the different kinds of expenses you can expect to incur. The biggest expense by far is your tuition that you pay to the university. And as you can see, it can vary from as low as $12,000 to as high as approximately $60,000, depending on the institution that you are attending. There are also other kinds of heads under which you would be incurring expenses. These are housing, books, health insurance, and living expenses. This can vary depending on the location in which you're in and the institution that you are attending. So it's important for you to look up the US universities' estimates of tuition and living expenses on their website and consider whether these estimates fall within the budget that you can afford to pay or not. Next slide. So on the note of fees, we can move on to step 2 of the application process. Step 1 was selecting the US universities you want to apply to. Step 2 is financing your education. How will you fund the education that you want to pursue in the US? Next slide. These are the different avenues of finance available to you. Of course, there are family funds as well, but these are options that are besides your basic family funds. You may have financial aid or scholarships from US universities, and this could bring down the cost of your fees and tuition and fees. You could also opt for on-campus employment. However, it is important to note that on-campus employment only forms a supplemental income which can support your living expenses but will not support your tuition. This is because on-campus employment is usually paid at minimum wage, and it involves jobs like working in the cafeteria or the library. It is also restricted to 20 hours per semester per week during semesters and 40 hours outside semesters, and it's subject to availability. So it's important to have a plan to pay for your tuition because on-campus employment is not going to take care of that. And it's important to have a backup plan that also allows you to pay for your living expenses because you are going to the US primarily as a student. And so studying is your greatest priority and you may need the time for study. You should only take up on-campus employment if you find you are doing well in your studies and have the additional time to invest in this opportunity. You can also consider loans from a US or Indian lender. Next slide. This is a slide that has a list of scholarships. And if you want, you can take a screenshot of this slide. As you can see, there are different types of scholarships. There are the US government scholarships, of which the Fulbright is one example. The Fulbright is currently only available for master's students in particular fields of study. And to learn more, you can look at the website usief.org.in. There are also scholarships that you obtain from US universities. There are scholarships you obtain from US organizations like the Rotary. And there are Indian business scholarships. These are scholarships offered by Indian business houses, but they are offered for multiple fields, a wide range of fields. Now, it is important to note that all of these scholarships have different application deadlines and different application procedures. So it is important for you to explore all of these scholarships online to know each of their procedures and application deadlines. Next slide. Now we come to the third step of the application process, which is the actual application to US university. So to recap what we've gone through so far, we've gone through the first step, which is selecting your US universities and the 5 criteria for selecting them. The second step was financing your education, which I might add should always be done early on in the application process. And the third step is applying for admission. Now, it is important to begin the process of applying for admission about 18 months before your start date so that you have adequate time to prepare for all parts of the application. Next slide. This is the timeline of how you can prepare to apply to US university. About 18 months before your start date, before you begin your studies in the US, you can consider what schools you want to apply to and which programs you want to apply to. This is also the time when you consider how you are going to finance your education. It's very difficult when students come to us at the end of the process when they've been offered an admit and want to consider their options then for financial resources when the university has not offered them enough funding. That is very late in the process and very difficult to help a student at that time. So it's important to make a financial plan right at the start of the process. About 16 months in, you do the pre-applications. You consider what you need to do to prepare for the different application components. This means that if you're an undergraduate applicant, you take your SAT or your ACT test. If you're a graduate applicant, your GRE or your GMAT test. You take your IELTS or TOEFL or PTE tests for English or any other English test that the university is accepting. It is also a time when you prepare your essays. There are personal essays for undergraduate applicants and a statement of purpose for graduate applicants. You can also prepare a resume that can accompany your application. And it is also a time when you need to request letters of recommendation from your professors, your teachers, or your employers. These are all steps in the application process that take time, and adequate time should be given to them so that you can prepare well and move forward with your best foot forward in the application process. About 10 months before you apply to schools, now ideally you apply to a balance of different levels of competitiveness. Universities that have different levels of competitiveness. So you would apply to dream or ambitious universities, moderate or matching universities, and safe universities as well. And if you've got a good balance of schools, then about 6 months before, you receive admissions decisions. These admissions decisions will come to you around the time of March or later in the academic year, unless you're applying for an early deadline. Now, if you've applied to a good balance of universities, you will receive at least one or more admit from a university. And then about 3 to 4 months before you can go to the US, you can apply for your student visa. And with this, I will hand over to my colleague, Joseph, who will talk you through the process.
Hi, and thank you so much. Can you hear me all right? I just want to make sure that my audio is coming through. Great. Hi, so my name's Joseph. I'm the Deputy Non-Immigrant Visa Chief here in Mumbai. And what a non-immigrant visa is, well, that includes student visas. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the student visa application process. Contrary to what a lot of people might think or might hear, or rumors that you might have, it's not impossible. It doesn't have to be scary, and it doesn't have to be cumbersome, because we're actually very invested in you understanding what's going on, so the whole process goes smoothly for both you and for us. So, like the slide says, it's easier than you think as long as you're prepared properly. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how to prepare properly in your student visa application. Next slide. So obviously, we're all talking about the future. We're all planning for next year, for next time. The last year and a half, I know we say this every time, every TV show, every conference we go to, has not been normal. This is our current operational status. Visa services are limited, staffing is limited, things are overall moving slow. We aren't back to normal. But I want everyone to know, thinking about what the future might hold and thinking about future study in the United States, that we have made student visas a top priority during this time. And getting Indian students to their opportunities to build those person-to-person connections in the United States is a really key part of our mission here. And we've tried as hard as we could to do that, and we've actually set records for numbers of visas that we've issued this year. So if you're worried about what might happen in the future, I just want you to know that students matter to us. They matter a lot. Next slide. So let's talk about the visa application process. It needs a couple things from you, and it needs a couple things from us. What it needs from you, the first step, is going through everything that my my Education USA colleagues had talked about, which is finding a university, applying to the university, getting into the university. And when you get accepted to an American university as a foreign student, they're going to give you a piece of paper. And the piece of paper, the form, is called an I-20. And that basically serves both for them and also for us at the embassy or consulate as your proof of acceptance to the American university. Not an acceptance or decision letter, but a form called the I-20. That's the first step, and you can't really start applying for a student visa before you get that I-20. The next step is to complete your DS-160. The DS-160, or what we call the SEAC, is your online visa application, right? So you fill out your application online, you submit it, and then you come in for your interview. You can do that, create a user account at ustraveldocs.com. That's actually your sort of point of contact for all sorts of things regarding your visa, appointments, scheduling, all that sort of stuff. We do ask you a lot of questions on the DS-160. It's a long form, but you should remember, and just when I'm talking, think about this, it's not a document-driven process. Like my colleagues were saying earlier, in the United States, soft skills are really important, and we really believe in them, which is why we want to interview you. So even though you're going to fill out everything on your DS-160, in your interview, we're going to be asking you questions about your personal life, your experience, your reason for joining, because the reason we want to have an interview is because, well, we want to talk to you. And then the last step before you start setting up your appointment is to pay your fee. There is an application fee. And there's also a fee for students for a system called SEVIS. And you can pay those via electronic fund transfer at a bunch of banks all around India. Let's go to the next slide and talk a little bit more. So what's the visa application process? How do you get a visa? Well, there's 2 appointments. That might seem a little tricky, but we actually do this because it speeds up the process overall quite a lot. The first appointment will be at a biometric, will be for your biometrics, your fingerprints, your photo, document submission, all that sort of, office stuff is what you're going to be doing at what's called a visa application center, or a VAC. There's one in most of the cities where there is a U.S. consulate, right? So you'll go in there and you set up your appointment not more than 50 days before your interview date. It's like your first appointment. You bring your passport, you bring your I-20, and you bring your printed out DS-160, the application form. You hand that stuff over there. And then the second step, your second interview, is the actual visa interview at the consulate or the embassy, right? So I don't see you as a consular officer, as a visa officer. I don't really talk to you during the VAC center. You go there, you drop off your stuff, you get ready, and then you can schedule it up to 50 days later. Usually people do the next day, and you come into the consulate for your visa interview. Now, remember, I mentioned there's an additional fee for students. It's a system that we have called SEVIS, and you will not be interviewed unless you pay this fee. So you go to fmjfee.com and you pay for your SEVIS fee, and that's the additional kind of processing fee for students, and you need that for your interview. So you get your I-20, you get your 2 appointments, right? One for biometrics, one for the interview, and then you get your SEVIS fee paid, and now you're ready for the visa interview, which I'm sure you're curious about, but don't worry, it's not that scary. Let's go to the next slide. So your interview, it's not going to be that long. It's going to be 2 to 3 minutes. You'll bring your passport and you'll bring your I-20, and be prepared for questions about yourself. Now, what do I mean questions about yourself? It's not intrusive. We don't mean to really pry. But as you can hear from hearing about the U.S. Educational system, the application system, the sorts of things we're looking at, the emphasis on soft skills, in the United States, we really care about you. It's a culture of individual self-expression. So people are wondering, what do I need for a U.S. visa? How do I get a U.S. visa? And they might think that there's a certain bank balance or a certain test score or a certain, some abstract figure that we can check or demand. You'll need to, give a good memorized presentation. It's not that. The interview is about you, and it's why we've asked you to come in. We want to look at the whole picture of your situation, and we want to determine if you qualify under American law for a student visa. Now, what does that mean? I'm sure you're asking, what can he possibly mean by that? Well, it's 3 things, actually. So you, in this interview, which is going to be short, just have to demonstrate 3 things to the consular officer. The first is that you're sufficiently prepared for your education. The second is that you have a credible plan to pay for your education and its expenses. And the third is that your primary purpose of travel is to study. What do I mean by that? That you're going to use your student visa appropriately. There could be a lot of fear and concern about these questions, but don't worry. When we're asking if you're prepared for your education, that doesn't mean, are you an exam topper in every subject? Have you gone to the best schools? What if your grades are perfect? No. What it means is that you're going to be capable of functioning in an educational environment, that you're actually a student, that if you're going to an advanced degree program, that you've completed other forms of education, right? So it's like that you actually, in fact, are studying and able to study in an educational environment. Now, the other question that people worry about a lot are finances. How much? What do I need? How much will it be? How do I show it? What can I prove? You'll write that down on the DS-160, and that information is also on your I-20. So when you go into your student visa interview, we're not really caring about how many lakhs you have in fixed deposits or what kind of assets you have or your bank balance, because, well, frankly, those documents can be faked. But also, we're more interested in the overall picture of you as a student. What's the source of your funding? Where does it come from? How are you going to pay for it? Think about this in the same way that maybe someone in your life or your family, one of your friends, when you say, I want to study in the United States, will go, hey, yeah, how are we going to pay for this? And you answer them, well, my parents are going to support me. They work at such and such a job, such and such a place. I have a scholarship. I've secured an educational loan, something like that. It's a question about not that the money exists, but where does it come from? And does it make sense that you're planning to do this? We understand that families, maybe extended families here in India, will invest in your education. And, all of us visa officers, we live here in India, so we understand how things work culturally. You're going to need to explain where money comes from rather than where it might exist at a given time. And the third one is plan to use your student visa appropriately. You don't need to impress us or tell us that you need to go to complete all your classes and you'll become a super genius or something like that. That's not really what this question is. Basically, what we're asking is, are you going to America to go to school, or are you going to school to go to America? That is, are you actually going to use this visa to study, right? So these are the three things that we're talking about. One, that you've met the kind of baseline standards of being able to function as a student in the United States. Two, that you have a credible plan that a reasonable person would agree is credible to pay for your education. And three, that you're going to use your student visa to go to school. And after that interview, which I'm going to promise you is going to be shorter than you think, usually, and I can say this statistically, we don't refuse most people, right? There's a lot of fear and anxiety, but there's a lot of good resources. Education USA and the US India Educational Foundation are some of those that can demystify this process. And I'm really looking forward to all your questions about the visa process after this Q&A. Next slide. So if your visa is approved, the officer is going to keep your passport, right? Because, well, we need to put the visa in it, right? So that means that we hold it and you'll receive an email or an SMS informing you that the passport is ready. We can usually accomplish that printing in 3 to 5 business days. All right. So as I was saying, the visa application process isn't that scary. And if you're prepared and if you meet those 3 criteria of being a credible student, having sufficient funds to pay for your education, and having a solid intent of using your visa correctly, your visa will be approved. Once your visa is approved, the officer is going to keep your passport because, well, we need to put the visa in it. You'll get an email or an SMS informing you when your visa and passport are ready, and they'll be returned to you in a manner that you select. That's usually done inside of 3 to 5 business days. Next slide. And here's some important dates to remember. Applying for a student visa is one of the last things you do before you actually go to the United States to start your education. And we encourage you to apply for the visas as soon as possible because it's really just getting one thing off your list so you'll be ready to go. You can't schedule your visa date for a student visa more than 120 days, about 4 months before your program start date, right? So a couple months before, you can schedule your 2 appointments, pay your fees, get your interview and your visa. And then you'll have to wait until 30 days before your program start date, right? Schools start and students can't enter the United States until it's, at least within 30 days before their start date. So you get the visa, you get it ready, you have your goodbye party, you pack your bags, you wait until 30 days before your school starts, and then you go to the United States to get settled in and prepare yourself for your studies. And with that, I'll just turn things over to my colleagues from Education USA to talk about some of the services that they provide here. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. So I'm now going to talk you through some of the services that Education USA India provides to students. There is first a sign-up link at which you can sign up to get updates from Education USA. That is http://bit.ly/edusa sign up. And there's a calendar of events that you can access to explore the events that Education USA offers. That's at bit.ly/edusa India event. You can take a screenshot of the slide to get the exact links because there are upper and lower cases involved in these links. There's a national toll-free helpline which you can call to get your questions answered. This is available from Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. We also conduct free virtual Ask an Advisor sessions on your 5 steps to U.S. study. These are sessions where you can listen to a basic presentation about the U.S. university application process and also just meet and advise and ask questions. To know more about their dates, times, and the joining link, you can check our calendar of events. We also offer free virtual specialized information sessions with U.S. university representatives. Now, for instance, right now we are conducting sessions on the different states in the U.S. and the educational opportunities they offer U.S. to international students. We are also about to conduct a session called the U.S. University Act Camp, which is going to be a series of 7 sessions that walks you through different aspects of the application process to U.S. University. To find out more, again, please explore our calendar of events. Next slide. We have an Education USA India YouTube channel that we encourage you to explore. This is a repository of a lot of amazing videos on different aspects of the US university application process. So if you are in the process of applying, do explore our Education USA India channel for more information. Next slide, please. And we're also delighted to tell you that we are about to conduct a US University Virtual Fair for 2021. The Graduate Virtual Fair takes place on August 27th, and the Undergraduate Virtual Fair takes place on September 3rd. You can register at the link at the bottom of this slide. There will be approximately 100 US universities available at this fair to talk to you, and you can ask them questions about their application processes, their programs, their scholarships and financial aid, student life, and any other aspect of a US university life that you want to find out about. Next slide. Joseph, would you like to talk them through the slide?
Yeah, I would. So we'll leave this up at the end, and it's some really invaluable information in terms of points of contact and where you have questions, not general questions about education, but specific questions about the visa process. And these are our points of contact. This is important, especially right now. You know, things are kind of crazy. The student visa season has been unprecedented and pretty hectic, and a lot of people have been very worried about if they were going to get, time to have their interviews or not. And through this whole process, we were constantly having to tell people that these are the best ways to reach us, right? Each one of these points of contact has its own staff, own people dedicated to it, and there's ways of escalating, more complicated or specific kind of situations up through the chain so that eventually they get to where they need. But this is where you should start, and these are single points of contact for visa issues. The big one is ustraveldocs.com/IN. That's a website in English and in Hindi, and that's sort of your main website for scheduling appointments and for sending inquiries about appointments you've already set up. The email address, and this is the best and really only way to get in touch with us, is support-india@ustraveldocs.com. We also have call centers in a number of languages. They're right here. That's Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Sundays 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. You can also, obviously, because this is Facebook Live, check us out on Facebook. And I also encourage you to follow us on Twitter. That's general updates, not just about visas, but about things going on between the United States and India, all the sort of really fascinating, compelling things that are going on in relations between our two countries. And you can also check out the websites for Education USA. That's educationusa.state.gov, and also USIAF and IAES Gujarat, which is one of the American spaces, as well as the Facebook page for Education USA India. So online, we're active, we're engaged, we want to talk to you. And if you have those technical questions about visas or your applications, once you start setting those up, really, believe me, support/India@ustraveldocs is the first place we answer, and it's the first place you should go.
Thank you so much, Deborah and Joseph. And we will go to the question and answer session. My first question is going to be for Deborah. Deborah, a parent from audience wants to know that, their child is in 9th grade. What can they do to build a profile if they want to pursue undergraduate program in the US?
Thank you, Aditi. I'm glad that the parent is asking this in the 9th grade, because there are two things that a student can do to prepare. One is focus on their academics. And this is important because US universities don't just consider the 10th and the 12th, which are our big exams in India. They look at the 9th, 10th, 11th as well. And they look at consistency across all the years. So starting in the 9th grade, focus on academics and try and do as well as the student's potential allows in the 9th and the 11th, as well as the 10th and 12th. That's one thing to focus on. The other point to focus on are the extracurricular activities that a student can participate in, because US universities want to see a well-rounded student as well in undergraduate applications. Now, something to note is that there is not a required list of activities that a student should participate in. It's not a list that you have to tick off just because it's required. Like a lot of students think they have to have social service on their list. But it's not like that. You need to do those activities that are of genuine interest to the student. So it's important for the student to explore different activities and find their passion and follow their passion. It could be going in depth over just 2 or 3 activities, or it could be a breadth of different activities, and that's all right. Each student is different. But they need to find their genuine passions and then explore those passions in depth over time. So these 2 things are the important criteria that the student should focus on. One is their academics and the other is their extracurricular activities. And of course, plan for the application process well.
That's great. Thanks, Deborah. Next question is for you, Joseph. A student has asked, they've said that, their visa was rejected under 214B. Can they reapply for a visa interview? And what are the chances of getting the visa approved?
Well, that's actually, it's a really interesting question. And it's a good question because the thing is, it's not really about chances, right? It's about meeting those 3 criteria, but also realizing that in the American visa system, every interview, every what we call an adjudication is a new process. Now it's informed by events of the past, right? But it's a really reassessing, looking again, do you meet the 3 criteria of preparation for course of study, of finances, that means that enough money in hand to pay for the first year and a credible plan to pay for the rest of your course of studies. And it means, is your primary purpose of travel to study? Now, I can't comment about the circumstances of an individual refusal or what will happen in the future. But the way it works is we use this very kind of situation based. If you've been refused and you're going to interview again, you should really be prepared to demonstrate, not that you meet some specific abstract criteria or some mark or some score, but that the situation you're in now is really substantively different than the situation you were in previously with regards to your course of studies, with regards to your plans or resources for financing, with regard to how well you can express and articulate your social ties and communal ties and family ties and economic ties back here in India that would overcome a refusal of 214B. So I can't comment about that particular case, but it really is something where, you need to show that things are different from your last application, or else the answer will be the same.
Thank you, Joseph. Next question for you, Deborah. Is there, a maximum age limit to when a person can apply for higher education in the US?
No, there is no age limit for applying for US university. You might find that there is a certain number of years of work experience that certain programs may ask for, and that you might be considered a good match or not for, depending on the work experience that you have. But in general, there is no age limit to applying for US universities. You can apply at it.
One thing about this, actually, if I can tell a personal story, at my undergraduate institution, the average student age, that means overall average student age for an undergraduate student, was 27. Right? So the vast majority of people were not coming in at 18 years old. And I have to say, it was a fascinating and enriching educational experience to be in class with people who worked, had other experiences, and were then coming back to school. I would actually recommend it.
That's a great tidbit. Thanks, Joseph. The next question is for you. Do students still need an NIE, which is National Interest Exemption, to enter the US?
Students have been exempted from the presidential proclamation on a travel ban. So administratively, there will be annotated on your visa something about an NIE, but it's not a case-by-case situation. We understand that students are very important, and we don't want the pandemic to influence people's opportunities to have a future.
Great, thank you. Deborah, next question for you. It's more like a comment and you can add to this, but someone has said that can you arrange, offline seminars in different cities of India? It will be more convenient for, parents and students. Would you like to comment on that, how we are trying to connect, during the pandemic with students?
Yes. So I just like to say that we are trying very hard to connect virtually with different cities during the pandemic. This has really allowed us to connect with cities that we would not ordinarily be connecting with. In terms of them being offline, we can't presently have real in-person meetings because of the pandemic situation. But once the pandemic is resolved, we do usually travel to different cities in the US, in India, around Mumbai, around Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Goa. And we do travel to cities and speak to students at different schools and colleges. So if you are interested in having us come to your city, do drop us an email at mumbai@educationusa.org.
Great.
And we will have to look into that after the pandemic resolves.
Sounds good. And of course, until then, we do have technology at hand. And we have been interacting with, we are doing one-on-one appointments with students through using technology, different technology platforms. So feel free to get in touch with us. Next question is for Joseph. Joseph, would you elaborate about, the COVID vaccination requirements? Are all vaccines available in India are approved by the US?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, but it's not a visa or an immigration question. The United States does not have vaccine requirements for entry, and your vaccination status doesn't have any bearing if you're not a student on a national interest exemption to the presidential proclamation. The United States is emphasizing the need for a negative PCR test before travel to the United States. That's if you're vaccinated or not. So that's sort of the requirement that we've made. These questions about what it's approved for, the United States is a federal system, states have different rules and regulations. The real question about vaccines and what's approved and what's not is a question for your university. So I would reach out to the university that you're applying to with your question. There's no vaccination requirement for entry to the United States, but you will need to coordinate with your departure within 72 hours a COVID test.
Great. And as Deborah has mentioned in her presentation, that check out the university's website. That's where you're going to find, any authentic information, even in regards to the vaccination.
Absolutely. And universities are handling it differently. Some might have, vaccination requirements for students who live on the campus. Some might be very strict. Some might not. Some may accept vaccines for international students. Others might have other requirements. So it all depends.
Great. Thank you, Joseph. Next question, Deborah, for you. It's, from a PhD applicant. They want to know that do they need to have a published paper or a journal article, when they're applying for a doctoral program?
So it's always helpful to have journal articles, especially if you're looking at articles in peer-reviewed journals. So if that's something that you can accomplish, I would highly recommend trying to get articles in peer-reviewed journals. But if you don't, it doesn't have to be an obstacle. As long as you have some research experience and you can talk about it in your application, you should still be able to apply for a PhD. I would also suggest that a good way to find out about whether you are acceptable to a department or not is to have a conversation with them in advance before you apply for the application, or before you make the application. So reach out to professors who could be potential supervisors, talk to them about your background and ask them whether it's worth applying given your background and the research experience that you have. And you will then know whether you're a good fit for that particular university, because this will vary from university to university, department to department, and supervisor to supervisor. So that's something that you can do to verify how acceptable you are to a particular university.
Thanks, Deborah. And I'll also add that, a lot of times when you are pursuing your master's here in India, it's not always possible to have a publication ready by the time you're going to apply to the university. So even if you have a manuscript, that you're working on, you can always use your research statement to talk about, the skills that you have developed while you're writing that manuscript and the research that you have done. So it's not a requirement, but if you do have, what I can add to what Deborah has already said, that when you're starting a master's program or even you're at an undergraduate level, you can think about, in what direction of research you can go and plan out according to that. That will help you, add to your application if you get a publication out. So the next question, Joseph and Deborah, it's kind of for both of you, and I would like to see if you both can weigh on it. From the audience, a student has asked that after completing a degree at a US university, can a student get work permit in US? Joseph, if you want to go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's not, if you're talking about a work permit in the sense of permanent residency or what's called like a green card, not directly, no. And there's also, I think it's important to explain, there's not really such a thing as a general work permit in the United States, right? If you're not immigrating, if you're not an immigrant who has someone sponsoring you, like a family member, then you will always have your work status for your immigration status to be tied to your job or to your educational institution, right? So there is OPT and CPT. And there are extensions for this for the STEM fields. What that is it's sort of, we recognize that for a lot of skills in the world, especially things in the STEM field like engineering or computer sciences, you can't do it all in a classroom, right? You need to get out there and have experience in the workforce. But there's a misconception that OPT and CPT is just a work permit. It's actually part of your educational program. So it means that for a couple years, and there's an extension for this for STEM students or people in STEM fields, you can go and find an agreed upon, not just open, go with anyone, but an agreed upon with your program and university job in the United States in the field that you studied in, and you can work there for a couple of years and you will draw a salary, but you'll remain a student, and that all has to be set up through your university. So just because you're on OPT doesn't mean you print out your resume and you walk over to Microsoft or you walk over to Amazon and you apply for a job, but it means that you work with your faculty, you work with your university, and you find that position, which might be at Amazon or Microsoft, that fits, an educational goal related to your studies, and you begin working there for a couple of years. Deborah?
Yes, I'll just add that OPT for all fields is 1 year. And then if you're in a STEM field, as Joseph was saying, you have an extension, which is a further 2 years at this point.
Thank you. Joseph, next question is again for you. A student wants to know that can they apply for a student visa while their petition file is pending?
If they mean petition for an immigrant visa, technically, yes. But the thing is an earlier question referenced 214B, right? Which was a question about, it's the baseline category for all non-immigrant visas that you should, overcome what's called the presumption of immigrant intent. Remember that question. Are you getting this visa? Are you going to America to study, or are you studying to go to America? Now, it's not 100% no, because not a lot is 100% no in our system. But when you're in the interview, if someone's already petitioning for your immigrant visa and, maybe the consular officer is like, wait, are you just trying to go to America a little faster? You should be ready to explain why this educational course matches with your goals and why it fits into the trajectory of your life completely separately from any family-based immigration, right? Now, that bar is going to be a little higher because we know you're going to go to the United States eventually if someone's petitioning for you, and you'll be able to study there with a green card. So what you should really be ready for in an interview, if that's happening, is an explanation of why right now at this time, in spite of the fact that you might be interested in moving to the United States right now, your primary purpose of travel for this visa at this time is study and study alone.
Great, that's great. Thank you for those insights. Deborah, the next question is for you, and I think we have maybe a couple more minutes left, so I'll take last two questions. This one is for Deborah. Can you kind of touch upon what kind of accommodations are available for students, when they're taking exams at US universities?
I assume you mean in the case of students with disabilities?
Yes.
Right. So I won't get into much detail about this, but I will say that most US universities have an office for students with disabilities or a students with disabilities officer, and they are very happy to make arrangements for students with disabilities to have accommodations for their exams, for studying, for getting around the campus, for all aspects of student life. It is up to the particular student whether they want to disclose their disability or not. But it is nice if you feel comfortable disclosing your disability, because then you can coordinate with the university and get accommodations arranged for you to be able to, make sure that you flourish and thrive in your life at the particular US university.
That's great. Thanks, Deborah. And I'll also add that every university has, the names might be different, but they have an educational access center. So I would, suggest that, students who have been accepted, for this semester during your orientation, you can get in touch with the International Students Office and find out where the Educational Access Center is, and try and get in touch with them so that you can get the paperwork started and you don't have to waste a lot of time, before you even land on the university campus. I'm going to take last one question. Joseph, it's for you. What are the precautions that the consulate, the students have to take when someone comes for an interview? Is RT-PCR test required to, are they required to bring in the RT-PCR test for the interview?
No, you don't need to have an RT-PCR test for entry into the consulate itself. That being said, I think that would be just very, very complicated. That being said, we're taking a lot of measures to keep people safe, and I mean very safe. One of the reasons that our visa capacity is reduced is because we've measured out our waiting rooms. We've taken into account airflow, right? We really want to make sure that there's a safe level, which just means that there's a reduced capacity for interviews because we are keeping people 6 feet away. We are reducing their time in the interview area. We are being very strict about masks and hand sanitizer. And also a lot of our primary waiting areas are outside. We mounted fans to ensure excellent circulation in that area. So the safety of the applicants is really driving the visa interview process right now. You don't need an RT-PCR test, but you are going to need to wear a mask, and you're going to need to follow the really strict guidelines we have within the consulate that are intended to keep you safe during the visa interview process.
Oh, great. Thank you. I think we have maybe another minute and a half left. So Deb, I'll give you one question, last question, which is kind of you have already touched upon in the presentation. But a student has asked that, where can I find a list of courses available after 12th science?
So there is going to be a very wide range of programs available to students interested in science. There are 2 ways you can search for this. One is by exploring US university websites, because each university will have a different list of programs. So you can explore their websites and explore their majors. The other is by exploring a search engine. And the one I'm going to recommend is bigfuture.collegeboard.org. You can use that search engine to look for different majors and the universities that offer those majors. But ultimately, it's important to go to the US university website directly as well and look up their majors and get more information on what they offer.
Great, thank you. I think we are going to close the session at this point. You have pinned resources, in the Facebook comments box, so you can reach out to us, you can reach out to the consulate, and ask away whatever questions and queries that you have. With that, I would like to thank Sita for the opening remarks and Deborah and Joseph for wonderful information that they have given to students. And with that, we will end the session. So thank you to the audience who have come in to listen to the presentation today. Thanks, everyone, and have a good evening.
Thanks so much. Hope to see you at the visa interview.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.